How do you save a photo from Photoshop? Again, there's lots of different ways, but we're going to show you first how to save it from Camera Raw. So once you've made all of your edits in Camera Raw, you can save right from within by clicking the Save Image button. This brings up all of your settings. So starting from the top, you have different presets if you've saved them in the past. I don't have any presets right now. Destination is where you are going to save it. So you can save it in the same location as the photo that you're working on, or you can choose a new one and you just click select folder, and then you can choose, I'll add a Photoshop, I'll create a new folder, edit, and I'll save it in there. Then you have your naming options. So right now it's just going to save it as the document name, and it's going to save it as a JPEG. You can also just type in a word. So say we have Photoshop practice, then it's just going to save it as Photoshop practice. And then you can add sort of these other drop downs for a series of things. So for example, if we want to have a series of 1-digit numbers, then it's going to save it as Photoshop practice 1. If you want to start it as a different number, then you would just change the beginning number to something like 10. This way, if you're saving multiple images, it will save it as a series, Photoshop practice 1, Photoshop practice 2, etc. You could add multiple things. So we can have a number and then the date, for example. So we'll do the date in numeric format. Okay. So let's just delete those. We're just going to say Photoshop practice, and that's it. File extension is going to follow the format. So you could choose the different format from a Photoshop file to a TIFF file, JPEG, digital negative. We're going to be saving as JPEG because that's the high quality compressed format that's great for sharing online or even printing. Below format, you can choose to include data, the metadata or not, or specific metadata. So if you only want copyright, if you want the contact information, the raw information, and this is going to depend on what metadata is on the photo itself, how your camera is set up. Most cameras will save a lot of that information, like the ISO, the f-stop, the lens used. Some cameras even save the location if you have GPS on your camera. If you want to remove specifically that location info, you can check this box. Next, you have quality. Right now, I have it checked to limit file size, but you probably will see just this. And you have this drop down, low, medium, high, or maximum. So if you type in 12, it's going to be the max quality possible. If you want to save file space and decrease the space of the actual file itself, then you can choose one of these other options, medium, high. For most online applications, high is going to look perfectly fine. For printing out, I would go max and go with 12. If you are posting online or if there's some specific reason you want to limit the file size to a specific kilobyte, you would check this box and then type in the amount. So say you need it to be under 1 megabyte, which is 1,000 kilobytes, then you would put 1,000. Because for some cases, some places you upload, they might have a limit. Or if you're posting on your own portfolio or website and you want to limit the amount of space it takes up so that your website loads faster, you might want to make it under 500 kilobytes. So you want to sort of balance the size of the file if you're posting online, but for most cases, if you're just saving for sort of your archive or printing out, just leave that off and choose maximum. For color space, you're going to leave it as RGB. There's all kinds of other color spaces, but for 99.9% of everything you're going to need to do, just choose RGB, unless you know that you need to use something else, depending on a specific printer you're using or something like that. But that will come up if someone tells you you need another color space. For us, just use RGB. Next, you have image sizing. So this is not the file size, but the image size itself. So if you have this unchecked, which will probably be what you have, it's just going to save it as the default image, the same size as your image that you shot or that you cropped it to. The resolution down here is the quality of that size or the quality of the print. If you're publishing to like Instagram or social media, you probably don't need to adjust these things because those sites are going to sort of resize your photos anyways. If you do need to adjust the size of the image, for example, if you are posting to your website and you know it needs to be 500 pixels wide, then you would choose resize to fit. The one that I like using is this long side. So if you do that and you set your long side to 500 pixels, then it will automatically adjust the other side, whether it's the height or the width, to fit that with the same aspect ratio. So what it's saying right now is that the long side is the height of this image that we're practicing with, and that's going to be 500 pixels. To keep this same aspect ratio, the width will be 400 pixels. If I change the height to 1000, then that means the width is going to be 800, okay? Next, we have resolution. Keep it at 150. You can go down to 72, which will actually save a little bit of space because the file size will be smaller. Or you could go up to 300 if you want sort of a higher resolution. This is great for printing, but for really any online use or even printing, 150 is kind of standard. Lastly, you have what's called output sharpening. I don't add this because I'll typically add some sharpening while I'm editing. But if you are printing out, they have these glossy paper and matte paper presets, which add a little bit of sharpening because when you print photos, sometimes they can lose a little bit of that sharpness. So they add a bit of sharpness to combat that. They have a low standard and high amount. This you probably won't be able to tell, especially if you're just printing out at your local printer or Costco or something like that. You really will only see this if you're doing a super duper high quality print. But usually, like I said, I leave that off. And they do have an option for screen. That's like if you're posting online. But again, I just choose to leave that off. Then you click save. And it's going to save it. Let's go to the Finder. We have our edits folder now. And now we have this photo, which we can see is 800 by 1000 pixels. The size is 392 kilobytes. And if we open this up, just hitting the space bar, we have this image that we can now share for our next Halloween party. So that's how you save photos from Camera Raw. If you have any questions, let us know. In the next lessons, we're going to be diving into more of the advanced options within Camera Raw. And then later on, we're going to be looking at other ways you can edit photos in Photoshop back in sort of our main Photoshop window, which you might be working with, especially if you're adding things like text and graphics. And we'll also show you how to do things in Photoshop specific to editing, like removing blemishes, removing backgrounds, and cool stuff like that, which is all coming up. It's a huge program, and like I said before, we have a full class on it if you want to learn the ins and outs and you're a complete beginner, but we also want to include as much as possible specific to photographers in this one, and I hope you are enjoying it.